Morning, Ben. Thanks for coming on the show. And I'm really excited to have you. Ben is the founder of Zettler Digital. And is that right?
Yep.
Yep.
Yes, sir.
And has built a pretty successful agency. And so today I just wanted to have him on and kind of ask him, try to look a little bit behind the scenes of his business and hear kind of how he got to where he is today. So, um, Ben, just to start off with, I wanted to kind of start at the basics. What inspired you to start your agency and what kind of shaped its early direction?
Well, first of all, thank you so much for having me. I was just saying to you off camera, I've seen a lot of your content and the stuff that you've been putting out, and I reached out to you to say, hey, like, would love to hop on, and you certainly graciously agreed to have me on, and I really appreciate it. Great first question. You know what? This is not necessarily where I envisioned my career being. If you asked me 10 or 15 years ago, it just wasn't really a thought in my mind. There is a very specific instance, which I'll get into, but I think it makes sense to give you a little backstory first of, kind of what sparked even starting this agency to begin with. But back when I was a kid and even high school, college, like I wanted to be a sports agent. Or if not that, I wanted to work in sports. That's why you see even like behind me, there's some jerseys hanging. There's that way, there's another jersey hanging. And I was sort of on the path to doing that. I actually, I went to the University of Maryland. As an undergraduate intern for the University of Maryland baseball team. And then after I graduated, I spent a season as the assistant director of baseball operations with the team. Loved the experience there, but they ultimately couldn't pay me beyond that one season. And working in college athletics, whether you're just starting out or even as you go further beyond, can be a little bit limiting from a financial perspective, frankly. And so after I got home after that season, back to my parents' house, I had nothing to do. I had no job. And I sort of decided on a whim I wanted to start a company selling what I decided on was sunglasses. I don't have one in the room here, but they are laying around. And I started a sunglasses company, and I found Shopify as part of that process. And I evaluated at the time, this was back in 2013, like whether I should use Shopify or Volusion or Wix or WordPress, or like, where should I start my website for my company? And I chose Shopify. And that was probably the luckiest decision I ever made. Now, at the time, it was, to me, the decision to make. I mean, I ultimately made it. I thought, feature-wise, it made sense. I should do that, whatever. But very quickly after starting that business, which was like store number 41,000, I think, on the platform, Shopify started to grow fairly rapidly. And they went through this phase of, what is now today, however many millions of merchants. But for me, it created a scenario where friend of a friend is building a business. They knew that I created my website. They needed help with their website. Somebody else needed help with email marketing and their MailChimp account. And then I got a full-time job working for a company called Steiner Sports, again, working in sports. Mm-hmm. And I was the company's first full-time hire dedicated to social and digital marketing. And with all the things that we were doing there, then it was like, oh, hey, I saw you did this. I need help with this. And then I said, okay, maybe I need to like create a website and, showcase some of my work and say that I'm a consultant and helping folks on the side. And, it's just this thing that grew over the course of about a 5-year period that was never intentional. Like there was never like, oh, I'm going to create a digital marketing and e-commerce agency and help e-commerce brands, grow their business by optimizing their website and running email marketing and doing advertising, which is what we do. Shameless plug for myself, but that was never a thought. And then I've been going through the Shopify partner program. My partner manager at the time, she's probably sick of it because I shout her out on basically every podcast that I go on. And I was just talking to her the other day, actually, but Lauren Helstab, who was at Shopify at the time, was my partner manager. And one day we're on the phone and I was still working my full-time job. And she said to me, what would it take for you to, take this side work that you're doing, this side hustle, and do it full time. And she was the first person to ever ask me that question. And in fact, that was the first time I'd ever even thought about it. And at the time I was like, sort of like half jokingly said, like, I don't know, about like 5-10 times what I'm making right now. And sort of like, a real net to make sure that like, hey, maybe this could be like a real thing. I think, at the end of the day, I was born to do this, or to have my own business in some capacity. My father had his own business, or has his own business still, even though I will say here publicly, Dad, you need to retire. My grandfather had his own business. His father had his own business. And so I very much have been of the mold that like, I wanted to work for myself. I wanted to work from home. And now I have the opportunity to do that and have the family that I have. And we have 2 young kids, and to sort of be here for that was really important to me. But again, like, to go back to the original question, like that moment, that conversation with Lauren was really the first idea that kind of went into my head of, hey man, this could be actually like a real thing. This could actually be what I do. And then Steiner Sports, the business that I was working for, got bought out. This was in June of 2019. At that point, the business had grown to such degree that, that without sharing numbers, like I was making more money on the side than I was at my full-time job. And it was just kind of like, for months I was thinking like, oh man, do I make the jump? Do I go full-time? Do I get rid of this stable income? And my hand was kind of forced at that point. And then it was a decision of, okay, do I go to try to get another job, or do I kind of just keep working on this thing? And that's the route that I went. And that's just over now. What's been almost 5 years since then has just sort of grown and grown and grown. And it's a constant refinement of, hey, what are we offering from a services perspective? What are our processes in working on a project or managing recurring work with a client? And how can we do those things better today than we did yesterday? And so that's just sort of what it is. And it just kind of keeps going. And I think too, like, for anybody that's out there that's thinking like, oh, I want to do this, but I don't have X yet, or I haven't done Y yet. It's just, you just take whatever place you're in and you keep going to the next thing. That's the way that I've built this business. And then I think so many businesses are built, more so than like a lot of the, like, frankly, fluff that you might see out there today of, strategy and we had this plan, and like, I don't know, it's not as clear cut as that.
Yeah. It's not just a easy like stair-step sequence of events. It's usually a little more squishy.
1000%.
Yeah. Well, along that journey, would you say that there were any sort of like really big challenges or roadblocks that kind of got in the way? And like, what did you try to do to overcome them?
Yeah. I'd say challenges, roadblocks, those things are almost a daily occurrence. And I say that without trying to be too non-specific or too just sort of like throwing buzzwordy things out there. Like, really it's there is always something different. Now there's big things, big events like COVID, at the very, very beginning when like everybody thought the whole world was ending, like same thing for us. It's like, oh man, I don't have a job. And, all these people, like, what does anybody care about buying something online when, people are going to the hospital and dying? And then, so globally there was kind of like this little dip, and like, there was a couple of weeks there where I was like, I don't know what's going to happen. And then this sort of rapid growth for e-commerce just in general across the board, like immediately thereafter. And we've sort of been on this like interesting train ever since. And it's been obviously almost 4 years since then. But, that was sort of a big inflection point for like really kind of changing the growth trajectory of my business. And that always sounds kind of weird to say because it was sort of initiated by COVID, but then other things too. There's other moments along the way. But I mean, there's always challenges, and like my type of business, it's a service oriented business at the end of the day. Like it's working with other businesses to either, sell more online or get more leads or, do whatever it is that they need to do in order to grow. And so much of it, one huge component is just the relationships that I personally have with the clients that we work with, given how we're structured as an agency, where you could call it boutique or whatever like thing you want to call it, between my involvement, between the involvement of our team, but kind of really sticking pretty closely to the day to day. That's such a big component. And then so you see like fluctuations in people's businesses or different times of year, or just different things that come up with every individual business becomes yours, because we're sort of so closely ingrained, whether it's on like a singular area of service or a wider set of services for each one of those, that becomes a really interesting, I guess, piece. But I'm happy to get into more specifics too, if you have, anything you want to dive deeper on.
Yeah, well, I mean, maybe next question I wanted to ask is kind of maybe a good opportunity for that, because I know that the agency space can be crowded at times, and so it can be a challenge to stand out. And so maybe talking a little bit about how you've thought about making your agency stand out in a crowded market, and then how you're trying to communicate that out to the market.
Yeah, absolutely. It's interesting because it's only gotten more crowded over time and is only going to continue to do so, I think. For us, it's really all about taking advantage of opportunities that are in front of you. So for example, in building my business on Shopify, and then this 10 years ago, and then starting to work with some other folks on Shopify, and then getting into the Shopify Partners program and sort of growing through that. And then they had what was technically Shopify Experts, which has sort of been sunsetted. And then there's a few specific things like Shopify Experts Marketplace, which they actually did just sunset about 2 months ago, was something that we were involved in the beta on through, I'd say, a fairly good relationship that we had built with the Shopify team, that we were invited to participate in that. And so what that allowed us to do was, be one of the fewer teams that had folks responding to job matches that came through that system. It got to a point where I was personally told that we had responded to, I had responded to over 6,000 inquiries over like a 2-3 year period, which between that and the time to response was the most responsive partner within the entire ecosystem.
Oh, wow.
Now, all of those inquiries, not all necessarily qualified leads for us. But even so, like that system, that mechanism, the Shopify Experts Marketplace, was huge for us. It was massive for lead gen, and to be able to, get in front of new potential clients that for a variety of different services, whether we're doing a website build, or email marketing, or just doing more like consultations, or whatever it might be. That was one really, really core component for us. So what I'd say, how it relates to your question is, anytime there is something that you can, give a little to potentially get a lot, like you really have to pay attention to it, as whether you're an agency owner, agency operator, biz dev, whatever. I will beat the drum or get on the soapbox of partnership development as best as possible, whether that be through more service marketplaces, or with other agencies, or with service providers, software providers, other service providers. That's been tremendous for us. And in getting ahead of, it is a pretty crowded market. There are a lot of options. And frankly, with all those options that are out there, that's where we've had churn for the most part over the last, couple of years, where the grass is always greener on the other side, right? So, we charge what we charge because of the experience that we have, and the many tens of thousands of hours we've spent, understanding the ins and outs of how various businesses work, and the mechanisms that, help to move the needle to make more money. I couldn't tell you the amount of times we've had, clients that say, "Hey, we like working with you, but these guys that we've already been talking to without telling you are going to charge us less, and we're going to give that a shot." And then those same folks that have then come back and said, it's not really going the way that we had kind of hoped. Would you give us a quote for, fixing X, Y, and Z? That has happened so many times. Now that's also, as a business owner, made me assess like, okay, are we charging too much, or is there a different way that we can approach, some of these partnerships with the companies that we're working with? Absolutely. But it's also just kind of a product of the market too. I mean, there are a lot of options out there for brands. I would encourage brands to always, go through the process of, trying to find the right people. But that too goes back to partnerships. Because there's so many options out there, so many people are reliant on, people that they've worked with that they like. Hey, who do you know that does X? And then, well, who do they know? They go to their network of people. They go to their network of agencies. They go to their friends. They go to people they know. And that's why, those relationships with your clients, client referrals that we've got with partners, like they're all so important. And something that we put a heavy emphasis on.
Yeah, partnerships is huge. I think it's one of those things that like sometimes agencies will happen into them, and it's kind of like it was almost wasn't a deliberate thing, or they don't think of it at all, and they're just really struggling. And it's like then you say, "Hey, have you thought about partnerships?" And all of a sudden, like if you can unlock one, it's like, "Whoa, well, why haven't we not been doing this sooner?" Like, especially if you have like a very clear target client, and you're like, "Well, who else serves that same target client?" A lot of times you can ask your existing client, like, who are the other vendors that you work with, whether it's other agencies or software providers. And it's like, okay, well, our existing client clearly has all these other partners. Maybe, we can find some complementary relationships with them and build out from there.
In fact, it's a conversation I'm having with a longstanding partner later today, and another one that I had yesterday. And something that, historically, I probably could have been doing an even better job of. It's hard. Like the challenge in my business is I'm the only W-2. And I'm not shy about that. That's why we're on this podcast. And if anybody is watching on LinkedIn or whoever listens later, and for clients that we work with, everybody knows that. Everybody that's on my team, which is a team of 20, is a contract worker. Whether they're a W-9, they're based here in the States, they're based internationally. Like I've always been focused on finding, the folks that do good work. And for how I've wanted to set up the business, it's sort of a model that has worked fairly well for me, and has taken a lot of time to refine. But the other side of it is like, no, I don't have a business development person. I don't have a partnerships manager. Like I don't have a salesperson. That's all me. Now maybe that changes at some point in the future for sure. That's something I've also thought about. But you have to find ways, given though that being a challenge for me, I've just tried to find ways to systemize some things and to keep track of things and to sort of, like some of my partnership folks at like software companies. Oh, I'm curious, like, what do you, somebody asked me recently, like, what do you use for your CRM? Because they know that I am fairly organized. And I said, Google Sheets, which, maybe that's not the best answer, but if you are fairly relentless with systemizing different processes as best you can, any of the admin stuff, then that goes such a long way. I know that that's for me. Absolutely.
Well, I mean, operations is a huge piece of allowing an agency to scale and getting operations working well. So if that's kind of part of your natural skill set, I think that can allow you to do a lot of the heavy lifting of that scaling process. So I want to maybe somewhat related to that. Are there any specific tools or systems that you found are really kind of indispensable for running your agency?
Yeah, I mean, a couple, I'll give you like a sort of bunch of like kind of smaller things that like, software and things that people I'm sure know of and probably use, but maybe they just don't leverage. So a couple of like real game changers for me. I just actually posted on LinkedIn about it yesterday. Loom, and finally paying for a Loom account last January, so about a year ago, has been an absolute game changer. Really, really important because I've been able to do a couple of things. One is when my team does have a question and they need me to give feedback on something, and if it's something that's, whether it's a new email design or if it's a new page that was just developed for a client's website redesign or whatever it might be, for me to be able to give visual feedback that maybe it takes me 5, or maybe I rant too long and take 10 or 15 minutes to record, is a whole lot better than me sort of like stewing over what I'm going to write and then physically writing it. And now I've spent 20 to 30 minutes. That has been absolutely massive just for the time saving element. Where it's also been really important is in the prospecting phase too, like selling merchants on hiring us for working with them. I've always been very like anti-free work, and I did a little experiment over the summer where I did free what I would normally consider an audit, something that I'm normally paying for. I did 5 of them for free in analyzing some potential customers' Klaviyo accounts. Guess what? None of them hired us. So I've always been very anti-free work, because then it kind of sets you up for this idea that, oh, well, hey, what about this? What do you think about this thing? What do you think about this thing? What do you think about this thing? And the potential customer kind of has a complete misunderstanding of like where the value is in terms of what you do. So side note, like what I do in the absence of free work now is like if we do like an audit or we do a quick review or a consultation or something, that we credit back the cost of that if they hire us for managed services. But even so, even with that, when let's say somebody reaches out that they want some assistance with CRO on their website, and they specifically want to redesign an element of the product page, for example, I'll take 5 minutes. I'll record a Loom video. I'll go in. I'll say, hey, you should be doing this, 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 and this, and then send that along with my proposal. I'm a lot more receptive to doing that rather than like spending an hour and like doing a kind of fuller audit. So Loom's a great tool. Superhuman's a great tool for email. I've been using that for about 2 years now. That just for the sake of doing follow-ups and sending automated reminders and scheduling messages and seeing if someone opened something or not, and just those features and functions alone, and also save snippets. So like if I'm giving a common response to somebody fairly often, and so I can just save it and then send it when I need it, or if I need to get access to certain accounts for a new client or for a potential client, and I can have a preset message that populates the right information that I just send when I need it. Like it's all about like time and efficiency, both of those tools.
Yeah.
Other like systems oriented stuff. Like I have kind of my CRM, my Google Sheet that has sort of a lot of different information that tracks and is like color coordinated on like the most recent date that I had a touch point with someone when they were first introduced to me, the category of how we were connected, whether it was through, a referral or a partner form or through our website or, a direct introduction or like any of these things. That's been a tremendous resource for me. I mean, outside of that, I'm trying to think if there's like systems or there's tools that we use. I mean, I was very like a couple of years ago Slack resistant to like sharing that with clients because I didn't want them to treat it as live chat. And now that's sort of a core part of what we do, because otherwise my email inbox would be, even more insane than it already is.
Right.
Yeah, that's sort of what I'm thinking about. Yeah.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. Well, I think we touched on this a little bit earlier when we talked about partnerships, but I wanted to kind of ask, like, what strategies, maybe beyond partnerships or including that, have been effective for growing your agency to this point?
The partnerships thing has definitely been really big, and I haven't been like a lot of like creators and sort of other agency leaders are definitely, I think, do a better job than I do of like putting content out on LinkedIn and sort of showcasing kind of, hey, what your knowledge and expertise is. And then that kind of bleeding into, hey, what could you and your agency team do for potential clients? I've been trying to get better at that. But I mean, I can't emphasize enough like that partnership angle, because whether I like it or not, and I'm starting to like it less because it's a little bit too it's not diverse enough, I'd say. But referrals have been like the lifeblood of our business, and so if we get asked to give a quote for a blog article, or if we get asked to do a guest blog, or if somebody wants to have us on their podcast, or if a partner contact comes to us because they have a question about how something works with advertising or email marketing or whatever, and they just want to know. I try to drop everything I'm doing at that moment to do any and all of those things, and then anything else that might come our way when it comes to the partnerships that we have, because it has been sort of absolutely huge for us. The other side of it too is like, aside from just like growing the business through, finding new customers and getting more people to work with, it's also like, understanding a lot of different types of businesses when we're working with them for a year or 2 years or 3 years or longer. Sometimes those can be the best prospects for you, because if you're doing email marketing for one brand, and then you reach out and say, hey, like, we have some visibility into your ads, and I noticed X, Y, and Z. And like, have you thought about, how we might be able to support you there? And then that can bleed into conversations of, yeah, we do want your support, and we are struggling with this. And, just in the last couple of months, we've got, top of my head, like 3 contracts in the last 2 weeks that we've gotten signed specifically from existing clients where we're expanding our suite of services that we're handling for them. So that's something that too, I've tried to be better about, frankly, because, with what we do, it's funny, like, when I see stuff like on LinkedIn or Twitter, and people are like, oh, the generalist agency will die. And I kind of take offense to that, because like, I guess based on like what we do, people could say we're like generalist agency, like, oh, we help folks with Facebook ads. Oh, we help folks with Google ads and email marketing and website. And I'm kind of saying that in a way that the word generally implies that, oh, if you're a generalist, well, then you don't really have a specific expertise or understanding of how certain things work, or a deep knowledge of a certain topic. I couldn't disagree with that more, frankly. There are so many nuances centered around having an understanding of, for an e-commerce business, how advertising impacts email marketing, how your website can impact the data that's going into your email tool, how the formatting of your site can impact conversion from advertising. And I'm just giving a couple random examples. But what I found in my own experience in launching a brand on Shopify, being fortunate enough to sell that business 6 years ago, and then also working for a large scale enterprise company that I was able to lead a replatforming over to Shopify for, and then ultimately having the agency that we have. It's so important for anybody that's working on a particular business to have an understanding of the different ins and outs. Like, you can't be siloed into one particular area, whether you're a brand operator, whether you're an agency operator, frankly, whether you're even like a sort of junior level hire, kind of first job out of school type of thing. The more that you can learn and know and understand about a business, then the more value that you ultimately bring to the table. And so when I see like that stuff about like, generalist agencies, like, I look at that as a benefit, like, kind of knowing what we know and being serious about the areas that we do help folks on, and being honest about the areas that are not our areas of expertise, I think really helps for us to demonstrate our value to clients, and also for us to tell, what we do to new potential clients too.
Well, I think it probably helps too that, like, it's coming out of a place of, you ran your own e-com brand, so you're basically saying, like, I've had to basically understand all these connected pieces, but you still kind of have like that one ideal client, like the e-com brand as your core customer type. Is that right?
Yeah, I guess so. I mean, I get questions all the time, like, okay, you're a Klaviyo Elite partner, which is great, but it's good for us, good for our business. Oh, but you do Facebook ads. Oh, you're a Shopify partner. Like, which one is the one I should be hiring you for? And my question in response is, well, which one do you need? Where is the, I guess in my head as a salesperson, okay, what's the lowest barrier to entry? But also, where is it that you truly need help as the brand? What's your internal team structure like? Who handles what? Are you working with third-party agencies only? Like, what exactly are they handling for you? If you're not going to work with them anymore, who internally can do X, Y, and Z? Like, there's all these questions. So I don't know. I generally, when I do get that question of like, hey, what's your core area of expertise, your core service? I generally don't answer the question directly because I do believe strongly in kind of what we do and, who we could be best for. Meaning like, hey, if you have an e-commerce business and you're doing like generally like at least a couple $100,000 a year, and then sort of anything above that, then I think we could be really well suited for any type of company.
Right.
The ones that we do really well with on email marketing, like, hey, if it's health and wellness, if it's CPG, if there's people that have a high rate of repeat purchase, like that's sort of a natural good thing for email marketing. And so we work with a lot of companies like that when we do email, but that's just being one example. But it's really all about just like, what is it that is going to potentially benefit a client most, and where can we kind of insert into the process? And that's what I always try to figure out. And that's why I purposely like kind of kept us nimble with, how we structure our service offerings and what we could potentially do, because otherwise we're just going to like turn away money where it doesn't make sense to do that. I had a conversation with somebody recently. It was actually talking partnerships, like it was like a partner manager or somebody. And like, I get the comments all the time or I see things, people say, oh, I'm recommending this tool and they could pay me commission, but I don't take the commission because I just love like giving good recommendations to clients. And like, I love good recommendations to clients too, but at the end of the day, what are we doing all of this for? We're doing it to make money. And I kind of like, I really try to dumb it down as simple as possible. So when it comes to even things like commissions we might get paid from a tool that we recommend, the thing I tell clients is like, look, I could recommend to you any tool that does ABC function, and they probably have a partner program. And so if they have a partner program, I'm probably going to get commission for what I'm recommending to you, but I'm only going to recommend something to you if it makes sense. Yeah, as a business owner, the things that I think about is like, well, over time, if you think about hundreds of merchants that you're working with and all the different tools that they use, and if you can find the ones that you can see at a certain scale like really work well for merchants, why wouldn't you make those recommendations? And if you're making those recommendations, why wouldn't you want the commission that they're offering you? And like, why would you be so like kind of blasé about it when like the reality is that can represent, again, we're talking like this conversation being in like terms of like agency and structuring the business and how it works, like that would represent a significant percentage of your income as an agency. Like it's sort of, you're doing a disservice to yourself if you don't pay attention to those types of things. But anyway, I'll get off my soapbox because
I think it's an interesting conversation to be had. I think part of the reason that I've seen people do it is because it's like, well, this is going to engender more trust, that this person is not going to make a recommendation that's purely based on self-interest, but it might not be in my best interest, but I think
this is a fair argument.
But I think by the same token, if you're just transparent, being like, look, yes, these people are going to give me a referral, kickback or something. But I'm only like, I'm not doing it for that reason. I'm doing it because I think this is the best tool, but I just happen to get, an affiliate reward for that,
Yep.
And I think both of those can accomplish the same goal, where it's really just about being upfront and clear and not have anything like where they find out after the fact, oh, you made money off of that, like, and you didn't tell me. Why are you not mentioning that? Is that because there's a better option out there and you just wanted to get the the bigger incentive or something.
Yeah, I mean, I've had even conversations that get as specific with clients of like, I was asked, it was recently, actually, a couple of weeks ago, do you get paid for recommending these tools? And it was like I forget the specifics, but it was like two competing tools that kind of do the same function. And I said to the client, yes, and here's exactly how much they're going to give me if you say yes to this. I gave them the dollar figure. $20.30 or something. Like it's like, it's because that's not really the point at the end of the day. I mean, and there's also like tools where I'll give one real example. So Wonderment, which is something that I have, I'll give them the shout out here because like I've loved working with their team. I love the product. Because we do a lot of email marketing. Anytime there's a tool that we can sort of extend on top of what a merchant is doing, like with Klaviyo and with Shopify, like, hey, I'm all for that. Elevar is sort of another big one there. But with a specific example of Wonderment, before they even had a paid partner program, I think we had like 20 clients or something like using it. And there was one where they had just switched off maybe a couple months prior from Malomo, I think, which is sort of like not the same tool, but similar types of functions, transactional shipping messaging, things that you can, give then customers the ability to sort of see in the shipping process. And whatever, I think at the time for this merchant, for their plan was gonna be like $189 a month. I think now like the paid stuff with Wonderment had kicked in. So I think I make like, maybe it's $30, I whatever the number is. And, they weren't like hesitant. They ultimately chose to use it, but like, it was like, oh yeah, do you get commission for this? Yes. And then for this exact merchant that I'm thinking of, they have made in the last year and a half over $300,000 in last click attributed revenue in Google Analytics from their Wonderment driven Klaviyo flows. So
You're like, this paid for itself, and it's not like you're making bank.
Right. I'm not making 300,000. You're making 300,000. Look, it's not an apples to apples comparison for everybody, for anybody that might sign up for a tool. But there's examples like that across the board of like, look, I'm making this recommendation and here's results we've seen from other clients. And this is why. But I've definitely gotten that question more than once though. I've got like, why are you recommending this? Oh, the commission. And like, again, I still think, despite all that, despite how clearly I can see like kind of the opposing view of like, you want that extra sort of like trust element, like, oh no, I could get commission, but I'm not because, I just want you guys to have the best tool. Well, like you can either let them have the best tool and not get commission, or you can let them have the best tool and get commission. But as an agency owner, I think referrals represented referral commissions. I don't have them in front of me, but I'm like, it's about 10% of our business. So yeah, I'm going to take advantage of that. And it's all positive. So,
yeah. Awesome. Well, kind of to wrap things up and to tie it with a nice, neat bow, I want to I guess, ask you a question about what sort of advice would you give to somebody else who either is looking to start their own agency or who maybe is in the early stages of it? Like what sort of advice maybe you would give to your younger self at this point?
I'd say a couple things. I'd say I even though I'm always striving to get more organized and I'm doing things now that let's say a year ago or 2 years ago or 5 years ago I wasn't doing, I would encourage doing that a little bit faster. I would encourage trying to establish the partnership sooner. Like, as it's not regret, because then that would kind of go against what I said at the beginning of like, there's this element of you're kind of building over time. And even if you don't have all the answers today, it's, what can you do to progress to tomorrow? And then like after that, the next day. But man, like, it's just sort of like leaves you feeling like, man, if I had only done this sooner, then I could be that much more ahead. I always want to get ahead. But really, I would encourage, like, if you're just starting out, or if you thinking, you work at a certain company, you want break out on your own and do whatever you might want to do. Have a destination where people can see your work. And that can be a simple portfolio website with 1 or 2 case studies. Maybe you've done, whether it's friend of a friend, maybe it's your own business that you want to develop a case study around, like what I did. Like my sunglasses company that we created was basically built entirely on influencer marketing, which 10 years ago was like, hey, you want some free sunglasses? Are you going to post about it on your Instagram? Yeah, no problem. And then, people that today would charge tens of thousands of dollars and have 10 million followers, like back then, I never paid $1. So a very different ball game. I recognize that. But that in itself created a case study for us to then go, when somebody reached out, like, hey, we did this, we could do that for you. Like, so anywhere that you can create that case study, create that portfolio. If you're a graphic designer, like, which many are very good at, if they have a Behance portfolio or just like other things, any services business, like if you can demonstrate, hey, I know what I'm doing, here's what I can do, and here's why and how, that's really important. Because even like for me, when I'm trying to bring somebody onto our team where like I need somebody to step in on a few accounts for email marketing, or I need a graphic designer to do something, and like somebody reaches out and then they just send me like a sort of standard format resume that just gives some like high level bullet points of things that they maybe did or didn't do, or that was just kind of like what the result was after working with the whole team. Like, no, just show me examples. Like, you say you ran social content for brands, like, all right, send me 5 bullet points with Instagram posts that you put up. You design 5 pieces of content, send me the Figma file that you use to create it. Like, it's not as a gotcha. It's like, no, just like show me exactly what it is to sell me on why I should bring you onto the team. The same way that if you're trying to sell your services to a brand or a celebrity or a creator or whomever it might be that could hire you, give them that concrete example. That's probably my biggest piece of advice when you're like kind of first starting out. And then the other things come too, of like establishing the partnerships, or, if you're creating an app that is going to tie to Shopify into Klaviyo with some like interesting data points, or if like it's a survey tool, or like whatever it might be. Like, if you're not yet in the Klaviyo partner program, like get in the Klaviyo partner program, like start to get into that network. And the same for if you're a service provider, managing Facebook ads or managing email marketing, or a developer building websites, like make as many connections as you can with people, reach out to partnership managers, ask people for advice, like reach out to people on LinkedIn. Like, I'm by no means like any sort of guru for any of this stuff. And I'm certainly not the smartest person in the room ever. But, when people reach out to me, like I'll try to give you advice where I can. So like, reach out to me, reach out to any number of thousands and millions of other people that are out there that are in whatever niche it is that you're creating. And that can really go a long way for you. Because I still try to do that stuff too now. Like, I reach out to agency owners all the time. I try to like talk about their business and, see what they've done to systemize things in different ways, or what are they struggling with? And, what am I struggling with? So I can see like, maybe I should stop pulling my hair out because everybody's kind of dealing with this. So that's a process that really never ends, regardless of what point in the journey you're at. But I think with those two things, again, like creating that portfolio, establish the partnerships, that goes a long way to getting leads at the end of the day, like getting people that, would potentially be interested in hiring you. And then once you get them having that conversation, then demonstrating how you could potentially work with them.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, Ben, this has been super fun hearing more about kind of your journey. If people, whether it's other agencies or people who are, potential clients, people in the e-com world, that would like to kind of follow up with you, what's the best way for them to find you?
I'm pretty active on LinkedIn, Twitter, just at Ben Zettler, BenZettler. Our website is now ZettlerDigital.com. That was actually a change that happened like 2 weeks ago. For 10 years, it's been BenZettler.com. And I didn't feel that was indicative of, kind of where the business is at. But yeah, ZettlerDigital.com. You find me on Twitter, LinkedIn, or wherever. I'm always happy to chat with folks, whether it be looking for advice, people looking for new partnership opportunities, or if you're looking to hire us for any of our services. Happy to have that conversation too.
Awesome. Well, thanks again. Look forward to keeping in touch.
Great. Thank you so much, David.